What are the goals of this career?
As a typical designer, you're working with product managers, developers, QA, sometimes customer support, and technical writers, basically to bring a product vision to life. So, giving customers, users what they need and what they want in a product so that they can better go along their way.
What type of degree do you need for this career, if any?
It depends. It depends who you're talking with. It depends what company that you want to work for. Um, I personally don't have a degree in UX or anything design related. There are boot camps available. My number one recommendation would be to find a mentor. Look in your area to find either a designer that's living near you or is already in a group like that, and just ask them if they can review your portfolio or provide any resources for you. That's the best way to get really good feedback to know where the industry's at. Um, that's my top recommendation.
As a UX designer, how is the work-life experience?
Work life balance, I think I love, love, love being a designer because, being a developer is pretty cool. You definitely get like a lot of hype behind you, but there can be legitimate emergencies that come up with development that you have to solve that day, that night, whenever. And with design, there's rarely an emergency like that. And everything, since you're working on like the front end of working with customers, and you kind of get to set your own tone and your own pace. So that's one of my favorite things about being a designer. I also love working remotely. I can be in Bali. One of my friends went to Bali and, just whatever, or, here I am in Atlanta. I love that too. And then I guess the same thing about design is, yeah, you are working like really far ahead. So you don't, there's, there's pressure to keep up the cadence, but you're not like freaking out all the time.
On a typical day, what do you usually do?
Ooh. Okay, so in general, typically I've set up my kind of work schedule as a kind of meeting day and then a heads down day, meeting day, heads down day, and then a collaboration day on Friday. So on a meeting day, what I'll typically do, and this probably isn't a good, good, but in the morning I'll crank out all my stuff and just, okay, what do I need to do, what do I need to do? In the afternoons I'll do my meetings, and then, so that's a meeting day. I'll get all that feedback, and then the next day I'll have a heads down day, and I'll do all the things that I don't really like to do, like little projects, or I'll do a lot of visual design in the morning. I'll do more of collaboration stuff in the afternoon. And my schedule's kind of set up that way just because I work on the East Coast and I work with people on the West Coast and other weird time zones. So finding that time to you kind of chunk it up to visual design, kind of chunk it up to like research, and then collaboration is kind of like the three main buckets that I work in.
Could you tell me a bit about the visual design and research aspect of your job? Like, yeah, what do you usually
Yeah.
do?
So right now my company uses, I guess I should tell you a little bit about that. So I work at a company called Therapy Brands, and they are a group of brands that is like 18 different brands that works within the therapy space for mental and behavioral health. So me and my job, I work in with like 5 or 6 different products. So I work on different projects for all those products. So we're using Sketch and InVision right now in Azure DevOps for ticket management. So for visual design, I'll get a ticket in like the week before, and it'll have all the acceptance criteria, the requirements of this is what the screen needs to look like, this is the information, this is what users need to be able to do, here's the work, blah, blah, blah. And then it's up to me to go into that product and do research and figure out what's already existing. What do I need to add? Do we need to move something? Is this a whole new situation? And then I go back to the team and I say, here's my estimate as far as how much time it's going to take. I would say that for somebody just getting into the industry, you probably would not need to give all that estimate, and you would learn underneath somebody how to do that. And also, just as you're learning your own limitations. For me personally, it takes me a lot longer to do visual design, but I can whip out workflows like really fast. The other designer that I work with, she does visual design really fast, and it takes her a long time to do workflows. So it just kind of depends who you are and how your brain works. But it varies a lot just because I work with lots of different teams on lots of different products.
What drew you to this job, and how did you get into this job?
Um, so a long time ago, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and so my mom took me to a meetup one time in San Francisco, and I learned what UI was, and I was like, "Wow, this is so cool, and it's like so easy." And I never thought anything of it, and a lot of other people were just they were like really struggling with concepts, and I'm like, "No, it just looks like this. Like it's no big deal." And so I didn't think anything of it. I wanted to go to school for design, but I instead got a degree in speech pathology. Um, After that, I did some speech therapy and behavior therapy, and I decided that I wanted to do UX, and I refound a similar meetup, and I got a mentor, and I was like, I'm gonna do this. So I took 6 months off from work, and then my mentor helped me, how to interview, how to do whiteboard sessions, how to do a portfolio. Um, so that's how I got into it, left it, and then came back into UX.
What should I do if I want to get into this career? I've heard that you mentioned the work portfolio a couple times already, and I feel like that is definitely an important part of the job.
Yes. So, if you are going to get a job as a designer, you absolutely must have a portfolio. And that doesn't mean that you need to have like a super fancy website or like a 156 page slide document. Like, no, 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 no. Like, you need to have something just to showcase your work, whether that's a PDF printout of a few different projects that you've done, or a very simple website or a Google Slides, something just to showcase that. But a portfolio is like an absolute must. If you don't have a portfolio, people are going to look at you like, okay, are you actually a designer? Are you trying to pull my leg right now? Like, why? Essentially, the big thing in design is show me, don't tell me. So a resume is great, but that's you telling me what you can do. A portfolio is you showing me, giving me the evidence to back it up. Show me that I can trust you with these designs. Show me your process. Show me how you think. Show me how you collaborate. Those different types of things.
Is there usually on-the-job training for UX designers, or is that experience obtained through boot camps?
That's that is one part of the industry that that really bothers me, that there's it's hard for people to, in my opinion, it's hard for people to break in and get that on the job training. It's few and far between to find a junior role that is actually junior, where you have some knowledge of basic of what you need to do, but you just need a little bit of guidance, a little bit of training so that you can level up and become that awesome designer. Um, as far as gaining experience to do that, I do recommend like just finding a mentor nearby and finding a group, finding a meetup. That's one thing that I found about the design community is that everyone, if you say, hey, I need help, everybody jumps on to say, how can I help you? What do you need? Because that's just the kind of people that work in this industry, which is super awesome. Um, but as far as on the job training, like training, um, I would say probably not. And your best bet is to go either read a bunch of books from like Rosenfeld Media is a good outlet. Medium articles are great, or YouTube, or there's a couple of live streams which I don't have off the top of my head, but just Google it. There's so much information out there. If you spend, oh, that's another thing. If you spend 5 hours per week at your job just researching to learn new stuff, you will stay on trend. You will stay ahead of the curve, and you're gonna be looked to in that job, and you're gonna learn so much just taking a little bit of time out of every day. 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the afternoon before you finish, and you're good to go. Like makes a big difference.
Mhm. So I feel like learning is definitely a big part of being a successful UX designer. I remember hearing from a couple of UX designers on YouTube that are like constantly learning all the time. So
Oh yeah. If you're working, I think it's just a tech field thing that if you're working in tech, um, literally 2020, especially for design, this is where I'm gonna nerd out, but Sketch was like the front runner and just like, oh, there's so many plugins, oh, it's so great, this and that and the other. And Figma was kind of just like, oh, yeah, it's Figma, like it's nice. In 2020, that completely changed, where Sketch is now falling behind and Figma's coming up. And that's just literally from July until January. So
oh
that's like
geez.
6 months. It moves freaking fast. So if you're not keeping up, it's not that you're just kind of staying stagnant, it's that you're falling behind.
Mhm.
Um, so that's not to scare anybody or like say you have to like be reading all the time, but just like find a few people and like find your interests. So for me, I really enjoy learning how to relate to people and like this, like how to interview and how to research. That's my thing. So I spend a lot more time reading about that, and I'll read a few articles here and there about visual design. But find your thing that you're interested in, and then just keep learning about it. Just keep it going and keep that ball moving so that you can be a super amazing designer.
How has this career changed you as a person? Has it grown any new traits in you or expanded feelings that you previously had?
This, so I didn't realize that there was an application for the way that I think. Um, like I said, I got a degree in speech pathology, and that's a pretty prescribed method of this is how you do therapy, this is how you work with kids, and this is blah blah blah, blah, blah. And I was like, but it could be so much better. And every time my supervisor would say, "Yeah, Nisi, but this is how we do it," and I was okay, okay. So being a designer allows you to really like say, I have this crazy idea. And your product manager will say, yeah, we're not going to do that. And I said, okay, well, what if we do this one little piece? And they're like, okay, we can do that. So it allows you to like be really creative inside your head and like explore, but still be really, really realistic and I solve actual problems in a creative way that doesn't I feel it's changed me in just being able to see the world for like opportunities. And for anybody that's just learning about design or just getting into the design field, it's irksome when you first get into design because you see all these opportunities of like, why is the Chipotle designed this way? The door is on this side, but the forks are over here. Like, what the heck? What are they thinking? Or when you go to Chick-fil-A, you're like, oh, I know how the drive-thru works. It always works the same way. When you start to get into design, you just see all these opportunities. So at first it's like, why is this like this? But after a little while, you're like, oh, I can actually like make a difference. And like for example, I just moved to a new house. I can make a difference in how I actually design my house because I know that this is the flow and this is what we need day to day. Whereas, yeah, this like painting looks nice, but I don't want to look at it every day, and just being aware of those things. So it hasn't changed me so much, just more like expanded and heightened the things that I was already doing before, and now I'm kind of like allowed to explore that and say, yeah, let's do it and get creative and stuff.
Can you think of any downsides to this career or regrets that this career might have caused you?
Absolutely no regrets. Like I said, I took time off from working completely, and it was a huge risk because I didn't know if I could even break into the industry or if it would pan out. Um, if I hadn't have done it, I would major regrets. I love, like I said, I love the people that I work with. I love the people in the industry. I love being creative. I get to have this really cool Zoom background. Like, come on, this is awesome. And since 2020, being able to work remotely, I can spend so much more time with my family. Like, no regrets from me. As far as I don't remember what the other question was, but just kind of thinking about how the industry is changing a little bit. I've been a designer for about 3.5 years. When I first started learning about design, which was 4 years ago, it was a lot more UI focused and how to get a seat at the table. Now it's super awesome because designers already have a seat at the table, which for anybody breaking in, you're gonna, oh, this lady's old, design is a thing. And I was like, okay, well, it wasn't a few years ago. But now that people have a seat at the table, you're presented with more business issues or thinking more business like. And for the right person, that's a really cool challenge. For other people, you might want to just focus on that visual design. Like, hey, I just really want to focus on style guides, design systems. Like, that's my thing. Or I really just want to do research, and that's my thing. Or I want to do architecture. That's my thing. You know, right now it's an ever changing, evolving field. And I think that it's still settling into kind of what it means to be a designer. And it really depends what company you're going to be at. Um, but it's just ever changing. And just like I said, keep learning and you'll be able to follow those trends and you'll be able to say, okay, yeah, this interests me. Or, okay, this doesn't interest me, but if I at least know about it, I can talk about it in my interview and I can show that I'm here and I'm aware of what's happening. Okay, this hand motion does not help, but like I'm aware of what's happening here.
How do promotions, or if there are any promotions, work for UX designers?
Uh, I think that varies from company to company. I think the general trend in the tech field right now, unfortunately, is that if you want to get in a significant pay raise or a promotion that you kind of have to leave your company and find the job that you want. I'm not saying that about my company at all or, any company in specific. That's just the general trend that I've seen.
Mhm.
For the most part, if you are going to get a promotion, you just like I think any other job, you have to ask for it. And you have to work for it and just talk with your manager or whoever's supervising you and say, hey, this, I want to get to this level or I want to learn X, how can I get there? How can we work together to set up a plan for me to get to where I want to go. And that might be a little bit of a scary conversation, but it's so much worth it to have that conversation and really outline what it means to get to that next level so that everybody's having good communication. You know where you're going, your manager knows what you're striving for, and they can support you and provide resources for you too.
Mhm. How can I get started in this career?
Getting started from scratch. Oh, getting started from scratch. If you have absolutely no experience in design, you've never picked up a pencil in your whole life. No, I'm just kidding. I would say go on YouTube. I am a huge fan of YouTube University. Go on YouTube, find some UI challenge, find some UX challenges. There's lots of resources online. There's lots of resources online of how to get started from scratch. But just get in there and just start designing. It's gonna look like trash when you first start, but you have to start from trash. It's gonna be bad for a little while, but when you get that mentorship and you get that feedback, just always assume that as a designer that you're not here to get booty hurt. Like people will give you feedback and it will sting. And you're gonna feel like a horrible person. But it's not about you. It's about you're serving that person or that team or that customer to
Mhm.
get where they need to go. So just keep that in mind, and that'll take you through your trash time. Like I promise. Um, so finding those resources, getting those challenges done, get started in some kind of design software, whether that's Sketch, Figma, Adobe XD, Paper. Start getting familiar with that. And I also recommend getting started on like some common front end frameworks like I don't Bootstrap, React, Material Design. Get familiar with those components. And there's lots of free libraries out there so that you can play around so that actually so that your trash might not look as bad. Um, Start playing around with that just so you can get kind of familiar with the language and the components and the lingo there. But number one, get that mentor. Find a mentor somewhere. I don't know where. Find a group near you.
Are there any internships available for UX design?
There are, I want to say that they are mostly at larger companies and they'll be probably over the summertime.
Mhm.
Um, those there's few and far between though, and if you check in major cities like Austin, New York, San Francisco, LA kind of areas, then that'll kind of help you find companies that might have internships. um, but another thing that you can always do is just continue on those portfolio projects and find go out there and market yourself and just mention to businesses that you're working on this, and if you can borrow maybe their website and say how you can improve their website. Like that's just as valuable because you're also learning not as a designer just how to design, but how to work with people and how to work with people and communicate and ask those right questions and get to where you need to go. That's a challenge in itself. So you can make yourself your own internships. And I haven't looked in a little while, but I'm sure there are resources out there for how you can DIY your internship too.
Okay. Last question. Anything else you think is important for someone to know who's interested in pursuing this career?
Um, there's, like I've said, there's a ton of resources online. I think that this interview is super awesome that you're giving people this information. But also check out a it's called IXDA, an Interaction Design Agency Alliance, I don't know, of America. I don't remember what the A stands for, but it's IXDA. And you can search your local, like whatever city you're closest to. they have chapters and they'll post jobs, resources, this, that, and the other. And it's a Slack group, so just like that, like find your groups, find your online groups, and you'll be able to meet people. That's my last piece of advice. And the second to last piece is just saying, like, again, like, design is all about working with people. As much as you talk about visual design research, it's all about working with people. So if you can master how to present and how to communicate and how to ask good questions, like that will really put you above and beyond, and people will be able to recognize that you can see and understand and hear people very well. That's it.
Thank you so much, Lacey, for once again taking your time out of your day